Radio Okitalk, Radio Okitalk, von Mensch zu Mensch.
Welcome to Team Rabbit Hole edition 116, Harness Your Chi with Sifu, Paul, Boggie, Brighton. Well met.
How's it going, Sifu Boggie?
All is good. All is good in the hood, as I normally say, as I wear hoods quite a lot. But yes, all is good. Thank you for welcoming me on the show.
Most definitely. All is good in the hood. You're saying it. Maybe like the first thing that came to mind is like all is good in the Tao. Technically, I guess we'll get into Taoism for sure and Yin Yang kind of stuff at some point, because I know I was on one of your productions. I don't know if you're still doing that. About a year ago. And we got off into like dragons and Qi and Qigong and all sorts of stuff. But briefly, one thing I do on this podcast is take the number of the episode, which in this case is 116, and reduce it numerologically to a major arcana card in the tarot, and that would be 8, which is Strength card. I face my fears with the strength of love and patience. Strength is about trusting yourself, letting your inner endurance shine, using your power to embrace the amazing person within. You have everything within you to succeed. Raphael, what would the Galactic Heritage card be?
So we have number 8, Arcturus, Cosmic Midwifery, Parallel. All civilizations need guides, seen and unseen, that help them grow. The Arcturus energy has guided humanity from a place of compassion and unconditional love since its inception. It plays the role of a cosmic midwife, assisting us through birth and death in the physical reality. This energy also helps us through major life transitions. You've pulled this card because you have a connection to the Arcturus energy in this life or another. That energy is working with you again to reconnect, visualize a bright orange star, and breathe in its energy directly to your heart.
Nice. The star makes me think of the Merkabah. So, Paul, or Sifu Boggie, I'm not sure what you want me to address you as, did that resonate at any level?
Yes, it did. Firstly, my name, my name is Paul. My given name is Boggie, which means the balancer between the chaos and the calmness. That is my Taoist name. That was given to me by my Sifus. So, but in the Tao, you are what you are. So call me what you want. It's all good. As for the show, the fact it was what you say, it was it goes down to an 8. An 8 in Taoist. Well, you turn an 8 to its side. In Egyptian, that's immortality, which is also the same in Taoism. The 8 is also a dragon number, and the fact it's 116, where 6 is the divine feminine number, and 2 and 8 are my coincidental numbers anyway. So, and then with everything you guys said on top, it all resonates very much so.
That's always cool to see how that works. Raphael, go ahead and read the little blip I wrote, and then I'll kind of go into picking his brain.
Having studied Qigong, Tai Chi, Reiki, and other Eastern traditions, this Brit has been on the digital frontline, raising vibes and awareness. Join the team as we get our inner electric alchemy right with Paul.
So I stumbled upon you, I'm pretty sure, through Shanine, who has just recently had a child, but she was going pretty hard in the paint with social networking and kind of awareness spreading for a while. I mean, she still is, but it's kind of shifted now that she's a mom, I can tell. I've been trying to get her on the podcast. It's been a minute, and we keep having to reschedule it. But I turned on to you through her. And like I said, I had been on your podcast. I think the mindfulness of mindful consciousness or something like that. Remind me what it was called.
Yeah, it was called, what it's still about, it's called The Way of Conscious Mindfulness. It's a play on words, is that technically within Taoism, everything that exists in the universe, that's everything, is conscious. in actual fact, everything is energy. Quantum physics, within quantum physics, they were actually saying that they were looking at atoms, and atoms themselves appear to be conscious. So within the ancient knowledge of Taoism, everything is conscious. And it's the thing of mindfulness is your awareness, is to be aware that, you know, a lot of people, you know, spend their life in a haze, and it's until you actually awake up, you know, allow yourself to awake and be mindful of the situation you live in, that then you become conscious, mindful consciousness. So it's a sort of a Boggie Taoist joke.
Well, it's really appropriate. I know that I don't know how much into particularly Taoism Raphael is, but he's into a guy named Daryl Anka who channels an entity named Bashar, and it's very similar kind of vibes in the sense of it's like everything's awake and awesome, and tap into that. Remember that Buddha does mean awake, so what you're kind of describing is about that. So I mean, you could be as specific or as long-winded as you'd prefer. Kind of tell me where you're coming from and how you kind of got to where you are now. I don't know if you've lived in China or if you've always been on the island of England and you've just done all this kind of mobily from there. But kind of tell us, you know, where you're coming from and how you got to where you are.
Yes, certainly. I just wanted to say first, Bashar is, he's a very awesome. Also, I say, dude, it's a being, it's a collective consciousness. But according to the things that we go by, is that Taoism is not originating from here. It originates elsewhere in the space, and Taoism itself is said to be like a collective following. It is a philosophical system, to the point that George Lucas actually admitted back in the 70s that the Jedi were actually based on Eastern principles, but especially Taoism and Buddhism, and to the point where Qi itself is the Force, or the Force is Qi. And if you sort of follow the whole Star Wars canon, that what was meant to happen is that in the story was that Luke Skywalker actually found the Grey Code, and the Grey Code is the mix of the dark, the Sith, and the light, the Jedi, and the Grey Code is basically Taoism itself. So it's a mixture of the two. But anyway, back to me. So yeah, I was bullied as a kid a fair bit, and went into martial arts about 12 years old, and through martial arts, one of the first martial arts I did was Katida, which I think is called Kicks now, but it had a belt system, and the adjudicators from the National Chinese Martial Arts Association back in the 80s in the UK would have different adjudicators that would come to do the belts for different, especially the Eastern martial arts. And one of my Sifus, Melee Shun, he especially did this role looking for what he would call interesting people. So I started off like 12 years old. He sort of talked to my parents and indicated he would like to train me and teach me the Taoist arts, the different arts. And so around about 12 years old, I started learning Shaolin Kung Fu, Qigong in general. So Qigong, sometimes people say Qigong or Quigong, but it's Qigong is an umbrella term which means energizing exercise. That's any exercise that generates energy. Now the magic side of that is that any exercise can actually be turned into a qigong. So even things like ironing or washing clothes or mowing the lawn, when you understand the principles of Qigong, they can be turned into an energizing exercise. And one of the, if you see Qigong itself, the word as music, then when you hear things like Tai Chi, which more people have heard of, Tai Chi is a style of music. It's a style of Qigong. So there are many different styles of Qigong. And Qigong can be very much on a physical basis, so which is Qigong, but then you can get into very yoga style exercises, or Taoist yoga, which is called Neigong, and then eventually he even goes into meditational style exercises, which would be called Shengong. So there's lots of words I'm throwing at you, but all the emphasis is in Taoist arts, everything is mind, body, spirit. Everything has a physical attribute, a mental attribute, and a spiritual attribute. And it's all interconnected to this energy. So the overall is that everything you do, whether it's mental, physical, or spiritual, is all interconnected. It all has, that sort of, it all has the similar physical side, an emotional side, and a intellectual or spiritual side. And the whole idea is when you realize everything is energy, you can use all those different sides to generate energy in different ways. And also then there's a divine, or there's a masculine side or a feminine side. That doesn't necessarily mean man or woman. It actually more means, a feminine side is more the nurturing side, more of the understanding things from a feeling point of view and an intuition point of view. The masculine side is more the physical side or doing side, and understanding things on a more of an intellectual or scientific or in a way practical point of view. So the Tao is this mind, body, spirit. It's a masculine and feminine qualities or energies, and it's all bringing it all together to create a balance. That's probably the short answer, I think.
Nicely said. Something you were saying when you were aware of the shark clearly and the Star Wars kind of thing. Raphael's mentioned it before. Kind of, that's basically a very, I don't know how to put it, discrete representation of kind of some of the energetic history potentially of what our universe is going through. And I actually recently got the Galactic Heritage cards that Raphael was reading from, with the number 8, the Arcturus energy. And I believe in one of the cards it was saying that basically the Orion colonies were seeded by Lyrans and Vegans, and that the Vegan mysticism, like Vega the star, is where a lot of our kind of like esoteric and kind of magical thinking, kind of like Taoism and all this kind of stuff, comes from. Is that what your understanding was? Or when you said it comes from another place in space, like what is your understanding of that?
Right. So there's lots of in China there's a word called menren, which means inside the door, which is sort of like the secret stuff, the stuff we don't talk about as much.
Like esoteric.
I'm
basically.
notoriously known. Esoteric and beyond the standard stuff, because like I say, the whole point of Taoism is that there is no one level. Everything is all blended together. But in China, what they don't talk about, and I mean, communism sort of come through in the last 110 years, and trying to hide this stuff or bury it or destroy it. But the ancient in China over 10,000 years ago, they talk about there were three main beings or civilizations that brought information, especially Taoism, to China or to the world, and they were the tall whites. Now, the tall whites was seen to actually be either Nordic in fashion, tall, over 6 foot to 9 foot tall, blonde hair, blue eyed, human looking beings, which the Chinese didn't want the West to know about, because they didn't want the West to know that there are Caucasians within their history that far back. But the tall whites were also the grey, what we call the greys, the tall aliens, but in white. So they were one sector of people who brought information.
Raphael, is it really
The
choppy to you, or is it just me? Hold on one second.
No, he's fine.
You're kind of cutting in and out, and I don't know if it's from me. All right, cool.
Just
Then
you.
keep going. I guess I'm gonna pop off. Yeah, I'm gonna pop off and reconnect, but keep going. So, sorry to interrupt you, Paul. Keep going.
Okay, no, it's all good. So they were the tall whites associated in China and Taoism. The tall blues were actually bird-like in nature, and which are also found in Japan, the bird people, and obviously also found in Egypt, the Ra, amongst others, were bird-like beings between 9 and 15 foot tall. They were another set of beings who brought Taoism and Taoist philosophy into China, and the final set were known as the Longa, or sometimes are known as the Fu dogs, which is if you look at pictures of the Forbidden Temple, you see these dog-like creatures. Now, some people say they look like lions, hence the word Fu. Fu means lion in China. But when you actually look at them, or how they were always taught to me, they were dragon dogs, part dragon, part dog. And they were actually
the ball that they're holding in the Forbidden City is pretty important too, I think, right?
Oh, it is the flower. It's the flower life. It's
Right.
it's a 3D representation of the flower life. 64 circles bound together. Where the flower life is the divine feminine. Also, it's the Torah field. The which in science everything is found to have a Torah field. The galaxies, as well as cells, as well as human beings. But this goes back to this. These complementary opposites. The opposite to the flower life is the Merkabah, or also known as Metatron's cube. As Metatron's cube, it is 64 pyramids interlocked together. This is where you get like Archangel Metatron from, and it is in the flower life, those 64 circles, it's opposite, or in science, when you those circles or spheres, the opposite of them would be 64 triangles, which is the Metatron's cube, which is basically an advanced Merkabah or Merkabah, which is also mentioned in the Bible as amongst other places. And the Merkabah is the Star of David. It's basically a triangle pointing up and a triangle pointing down. But obviously, the ancient knowledge talks that these pictures or these symbols we see, they're not 2D, they're 3D. 3D and beyond, so they actually, not a circle, it's a sphere, and it's not a triangle, it's a pyramid, and these actually move, hence why they're 5D, because they're actually into moving and reacting. So the dragon dogs were the guardians of of science and spirituality. They were the guardians of the feminine and the masculine of heaven and earth. So the dog represents very much, the protectors of the earth, or protectors, but very much the physical, almost the masculine side, and the dragon side is the spiritual and the heavens, and this is why the dragon dogs were this combination of
Kind
the
of
two,
like
but they were said to be
from Neverending Story or something.
yeah. But they were definitely meant in China. These were not myth. These were actual real life beings.
You said 10,000 years ago?
Well, it's 10,000. Yes, 10,000 plus years ago. Is that Taoism was definitely brought in, and different things like feng shui, acupressure, Chinese medicine, all these sort of things were definitely introduced, and it's very much like the Star Wars story. You know, the Jedi wasn't one species, the Sith weren't one species, they were multiple. And in Taoism is the same thing. Is Taoism is a philosophy rather than a one race or a one thing, you know, religion or system.
Gotcha.
It is followed by many people. It's followed by many races. I would say what Bashar talks, you know, because I studied Bashar quite a bit myself, and it's Taoist. It's on, but you know, don't get hooked up on words. You know what the first thing in Taoism, Lao Tzu or Lao Tzus, as some people say,
The Tao that can
one of the
be
people
said is
who-
not the Tao kind of thing.
Yeah, and listen to what it's saying. The Tao that can be named is not the true Tao. Is that when you're trying to say, oh, it's this, you know, you're trying to describe the undescribable. So don't get too hooked up on saying, oh, this is this or that's that. And when I say, you know, I say American Indians are Taoists. I say, you know, the Aboriginals are Taoists. Anybody who follows their natural path, their natural way, because Tao means you know, the way of. Hence why originally when I first started doing teaching back in 2000, it was called the way of the way of what was the original name of the company, because that is what the Tao means: the way, the path, the balance. So it's just understanding that it's your natural flow, it's your natural way.
Your way.
There's lots of
Gotcha.
yeah. And
I didn't mean to
there's
interrupt
lots of-
you. If you were saying Nordics were one, the dog dragons were one, what was the third species that came to China, out of curiosity?
It was the avians, the blue. Well, there's more than one color, but the avians, the bird-like people, Ra from obviously Egypt, and the others in Japan, they were in Japan they were the birdmen. You'll actually find them in Japan as well, and I mean, now if you're into Corey Good information, obviously he talks about the blue avians. Also, if you've ever heard of Ra, the Law of One, that's their information, and it's all sort of interconnected. This information, again, it's sort of another version of the Tao, another way, another path. But when you listen to the information in general, it talks about finding this balance. It talks about, you know, seeing things, you know, on a more, you know, taking a step back. It's not about saying this is right and this is wrong. It's understanding how the universe works. It's understanding there is this thing of free will, but there's also this thing of karma, in the essence of, like, the Tai Chi symbol. Now, most people call it the yin yang. So the sort of like two little fishes with two little dots inside. Its real name is Tai Chi. Tai Chi means the balance between the two, balance between the yin and the yang, to create this universal balance. So the balance between the feminine and the masculine. The word yin yang actually means, yin means shady side of hill, yang means sunny side of hill, but it's still the same hill. So that's why it's Tai Chi. When you say yin yang, you're actually talking about opposing energies, which our society's at least been in for the last couple of thousand years. You know, this very much, you know, him against him, or this against that, males against females. We've been very opposing energies rather than understanding everything is about balancing things off, which I think is what's happening now, is that we're getting to this point in our society where things are falling apart because we've been so desperate to try to keep them opposing, rather than understanding that in the universe they need to be complementary. They need to balance.
It's funny
when
you say
given the
that.
chance.
I don't know if you're familiar with Philip Glass, the American composer, but he has done a soundtrack to a movie called Kainesgatsi, which is the translation of that, I think, Native American word is life out of balance. And they're very beautiful documentaries of just kind of like, basically time lapse and all sorts of weird shit from the 80s of cities and airports and just random people and manufacturing and just kind of like it's very psychedelic. It's even more fun on psychedelics, but very trippy movie in general. Music is very surreal. I'll send you a link if you haven't seen that. It's very profound. But yeah, what that title is getting to is life out of balance, and that's the whole point of Star Wars. It's not that there can't be any Sith. There just has to be a couple in relation to the Jedi, and they're trying to find the balance, and the whole drama is like this dance of finding that balance. Raphael, given everything you just said, do you have any kind of comments or thoughts?
Well, there's a few things, of course. First of all, thank you for kind of explaining that backstory. I'm always curious. I mean, I'm generally into Taoism. I haven't, quote unquote, penetrated that particular mystery far enough to be aware of some of the terms you mentioned and to be aware that, of course, also they are talking about these kind of strange beings. Basically, it is as you explained, and I think it's cool that you see the foundational idea. I very much agree. Ultimately, if one has this Taoist understanding, anyhow, everyone can be left, within their own belief systems, and everything is good as it is, just as you mentioned at the very beginning. However, it also allows one to see kind of the, brotherhood of perennial philosophy or something, or, Taoism that is shared between many different, supposedly outwardly different ideologies or systems of understanding, as you explained now with Taoism and Bashar. What I find most interesting, of course, is that you mentioned there are some kind of tall white grays. As you said quite correctly, there is the idea of the, let's say, tall white humans, talking about giants and just much taller humans, as also described in the Bible. And, lots of research is coming up on that front right now. Of course, they can also relate to the so-called tall white grays, which then may either be some splinter group of the Zeta Reticuli grays, out of which there may be all kinds of different ones, because when we get into this extraterrestrial realm or etheric realm, of course, the time and space coordinates can also become somewhat wonky. But there's two more, which is the Maze and the Mazani. I think it's in particular the Mazani that would be appropriate. This would be the second hybrid race created from humans and Zetas. So let's say between the Sasani, which is Bashar's race, which would be the perfect middle point. Again, this Taoism idea. In their case, they represent, in terms of species, the middle point between Zeta, so let's say very strong male mind focus, and human, which at least in this spectrum would be the feminine emotional aspect, I would say. Then you also mentioned the bird entities. First thing that came to mind was Rick and Morty bird person, so even these things keep resurfacing.
It's been a very difficult mating season for Birdman.
Yeah, indeed. In the most popular, pop culture, it even appears. As you correctly mentioned, it appears in Corey Good, whilst I'm not 100% vibing with all that he's purporting. Even just reading the idea that, Law of One comes up again, which anyone should read in original if you're interested also in Corey Good material, because then you get like the, original stuff. Most highly recommended. And, okay, then you mentioned a few other entities, equally interesting. Also this idea that, let's say, fantastical mythical creatures were actually physical in the past. And then as a last thing to mention or ask, because of course all kinds of individuals are attracted, for example, to Taoism, but I wonder how many are aware of the similarity between that system and, as you pointed out, many different esoteric systems, probably many different religions, who all kind of, went beyond the threshold and got into neutrality and observer and creatorship perspective. But then quite practically, I'd like to ask, in your individual ontology, doesn't that throw out the Darwinian model of, let's say, gradual evolution and survival of the fittest completely out of the window?
Yeah, I love all of this. Right. So, well, let's go. Let's start the end for the beginning. So, yeah, yes, it does throw it all out the window. I think I think this goes back to this opposing, opposite period of time that we've been in the last couple of thousand years, especially, is that without sounding too conspiracy theorist, but it doesn't
We're
matter
okay
here.
with that at
But
the rabbit hole.
yeah,
Don't feel
I
bad.
know.
Way past that.
Yeah, way past that. I know. There are certain people that have had belief systems put in place to make us think, oh, this is how things are. You know, it's been very much set that way, especially the people who want to control the narrative have definitely, put it, oh, there is a natural progression, there's this. But those same people will say that we're either that Earth is the only life in the universe, or there isn't much. Where even science. The one thing I love with where we are now is that science is catching up with spirituality. Science is catching up with ancient knowledge. All the stuff that the Taoists talk about, the dragon dog shaman. There are many different styles of Taoists in Taoism. Funny enough, and the one type, the dragon dog shaman, they are the keepers of the dragon dog information. And dragon dog, the dragon dog philosophy is almost like quantum physics. It is both science and spirituality blended in one. So the whole point is that in Taoism in general is that the whole universe is alive, the whole universe is conscious. That if you want to sort of use the word God is a collective consciousness. It created this universe, this reality, and there are many. This is not the only one, but it created this universe and this reality to experience life as an individual, to experience life in a separate way rather than being a collective consciousness. So within the Taoist viewpoint is that the Tao that cannot be named, the Tao is observing everything that's going on, and it is the Tao God created the universe from itself. It very much says this in rather the Law of One and other philosophies, is that the universe is a petri dish. The universe is this place to observe. But what's happened? There are games within games within games. There are people in this reality that know more than we tend to come into different light. We live over and over again, and each time we come in, we tend to forget what we knew because if we knew who we really were, if we knew all the information, it's sort of like playing a game when you know all the rules already, or you know how to get to everywhere. It sort of becomes boring. So the essence of having amnesia allows us to experience things in a new way. But what happens with that is certain people remember more than others and have used this to their advantage, and they've set up rules and set up things to work for their advantage. So this whole thing of life has been gradual and it's grown up this way, that philosophy has been set in play to restrict certain people or to make it better for other people or other beings. And one of the most interesting things for me is that all the ancient cultures, Law One, Bashar, they all talk about free will. Is that there is this big thing of free will, and so therefore, when people want to control others, what you have to understand is that to control others, you have to get their permission. So there's this big thing of on Earth, that people like live in fear. Well, if you live in fear, by that by giving fear or by accepting a certain thing, you're giving permission to be controlled or things to happen in a certain way. There's a very
Consciously or
interesting thing.
unconsciously, ironically, because sometimes it's overt, where it's like, yes, I'll take off my shoes to fly in America or something, but sometimes it's more subtle than that.
Oh yeah, well, this is the thing. Is consciousness. There are so many levels of consciousness that a lot of it is very super subtle, and it's almost, my teachers always talked about is that if society knew they're immortal, their consciousness, not their body, but their consciousness is immortal, and you live over and over and over again, and also that there is no, this whole thing, like heaven and hell, and you're trapped there for eternity. Well, actually, you can leave anytime you wish, but it's about giving yourself permission to. If you realized you were immortal, if you realized consciously at least that you could choose any path you want to, how many people would be living the lives they are right now? How many, if you suddenly realize that this, everything is important, but also everything is just, it's not important at the same time, meaning this life is important, but if somebody threatens to kill you and they kill you, you'll pop back up,
That's the whole
you'll be somewhere
Obi-Wan
else,
angle, right? Like, Darth, you don't know how powerful I am, I'm part of a bigger whole. Strike me down, whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll because I'm notoriously known for doing this, I'll let a little cat out of the bag. The men the inside the door stuff is that my teachers taught private industries and taught different agencies, and so I was connected to different agencies, and the alphabet agencies in America made it very, very clear that Stargate, Star Trek, what's the other one? Star Wars. Star Wars is a history channel. Stargate and Star Trek are documentaries. They were basically saying that these were soft disclosures, that because of the way the universe works, you have to declare what you're doing. So there's information out there, in public, so what's going on, whether it's
which kind of plays
consciously
into
or
predictive
otherwise.
programming. Is kind of what you're getting at.
Oh, 100%. The whole point of, 9/11. There was hints of that in Simpsons. There was hints of that in Mario Brothers, the movie. You can find, and people say, oh well, that's coincidence. Well, is it? Just because you don't know the whole story, does that mean nobody does? That's the thing. You have to understand that. I think there's lots going on. The secret space program, these entities, again, from the alphabet agencies. I once joked with a couple of our alphabet agency guys saying, so guys, when are you going to admit that unicorns, mermaids and Bigfoot are real? And they turned around, looked, and the guy I'm thinking of never joked. He's deadly serious. He says, yeah, we know they're from other dimensions, and that parts of the earth, the veil is very thin and they can slip it in and out, and we're fully aware, and we've got that under control. So the ancient stories, they're not myths. They're real, and there's guys that are in different agencies that are fully aware of this, fully know that these realities exist. But what happens is that consciousness affects the reality, the veils of the reality. And so if consciousness is pushed that this doesn't exist, they make those veils thicker and thicker and thicker, so they can't slip through. So when we talk about like Santa Claus, or when we were kids in
Fairies.
certain movies, they say, oh, Well, yeah, but they say, oh, you have to believe for it for you to see it. They're actually being honest. They're being the truth. Is that your belief? It's not about belief. It's about increasing the energy of reality to be able to see that thing. When you look into science, and science itself states that that physical matter, that the human eye only sees less than 1% of physical matter. What actually exists in the universe, we only see less than 1%. It is also known that the eyes can actually pick up ultraviolet, they can pick up infrared, but our brains have been turned off to that fact. So, there is so much more out there that in myths we call ghosts. Ghosts are just that are consciousnesses that are in another reality, that are, if you see them, that's because that veil is thinner where you are, but also you have more energy in you to be able to see that being. Ghosts are just entities from other realities, or and we talk about extraterrestrials. You also have extra dimensionals. It's not just from another plane, or there are many different realities, there are many different dimensions that exist here all at once.
So out of curiosity,
it's the fact we don't see them.
What is your theory? I mean, do you believe in yugas, or is there a model for yugas in Taoism? What would you say is happening in the grand drama of life, where people are hiding information in plain sight and kind of being gatekeepers? That seems less preferable than not. I think, I agree with you in terms that we're going into more of an age of Aquarius or whatever, where it's open information and democratization and globalization, all this stuff, kind of brotherhood and sisterhood of love and light, all that kind of stuff is kind of coming back online. We're remembering it. But what is how do you make sense of things I mean, I don't know if you've seen Dark Crystal, the movie, or the Netflix Age of Resistance, but Skeksis type people, gatekeepers, essentially making it not only just hard to access, quote, truth, but also denying it and causing coercion. Do you believe that we're in a Kali Yuga per se, or how do you look at this kind of thing? The past couple thousand years, I guess.
Yeah. Yes. So everything. Yes.
Because on the one hand, it's all good, I think. So we're learning a lesson through this. We're choosing to do this. As Bashar said, we're giving ourselves permission slips to do this. So there seems to be kind of a dance where all right, we want... I mean, I've heard Alan Watts talk about it, where it's we're in a drama and we forgot it's a drama, and then we basically are highly entertained with the good guys almost getting, messed up, but they come, they win in the end, and the bad guys never quite win. So it's this weird balancing of the forces like that. But I just wanted to know how you kind of make sense of, given that you think it's, and I mean, I don't disagree necessarily, but given that you are saying that it's all good, how do you make qualitative judgments in terms of preference?
Right. So very much. Right. So the very Taoist point of view is there is no good or bad, there just is. Now, it's interesting that 20 years ago I'd say that, and I could get myself stoned, and I don't mean by drugs. People would get very aggressive because they didn't. What about Hitler? What about this? What about that? The pure Taoist point of view is right. So everything is free will, everything is cycles. So we go through these cycles. So this cycle that we're going through, we've been through billions of times before, maybe in different ways, but it's this. Overall, everything is the same. But the biggest thing in this reality is the reason why there is no good or bad, there just is, because this is all just energy. It's all just this universe has these good guys and bad guys. But if you're immortal, and the fact that however many times you kill me, I just come back again and again and again. So if if this is all just a training tool, an experience to learn, how can there be bad? because yes, if you're murdering somebody, that we make that as a bad thing. It's considered a bad thing. But if we're all actually immortal and we're all just here experiencing energy and learning stuff, then why is that? And I'm not saying go out and go murdering, because that's not a thing for me. For me, I think we should be working on building up your energy and growing and expanding. But the whole point is that our perceptions shape our reality. So when you maybe an easier way to say it is that I'm known a bit as Boggie the Ghostbuster. Is that I've been to ex concentration camps in Germany. I've been to ex prison camps in Russia, KGB camps, and they're supposed to be super have ghosts and possessions and poltergeist and things fly about all the time. And I've over England as well been to all these haunted houses, and as soon as I turn up, everything stops. And it freaks people out, especially the people who work there. Is that I go in and the thing's normally flying around the room and it all stops and they don't understand, and then as soon as I leave, it all kicks off again. And they say, what happens is that in my realm, my energy field, is that I do not allow anything to enter that doesn't help me grow. So those entities, that darkness, has to have permission to be, even in their own realms, in their own realities. If things want to control and manipulate things in a certain way, it has to still have permission. It has to have your permission. Is that you as an entity, you are as powerful as anything else that exists. But if you do not accept your own power, if you do not accept your own belief of that power, you can't use that free will on anything else, or nothing can control you if you don't allow it to happen. It doesn't mean that I can't get run over and die, because I still haven't figured out how to change that one yet. That takes more power, but the whole point is this understanding of that things work in a certain, the universe works in a certain way, and this is why Bashar and Ra, they talk about the whole free will concept that is permission slips. There is this whole premise on permission slips, and you have to. There are lots of subconscious ones inside you that you have to work through. That this is what shadow work is all about. It's about knowing that you have to clear this past stuff and understand that everything is about consciousness and awareness. When you're more aware of these different realities and you start to work through them, that less things can control and manipulate. But it's also about building up your own energy and your own understanding. And I think my finger keeps slipping, so that's maybe why that's why the mic goes on and off, maybe because my finger keeps slipping off the button.
That is one of the disadvantages of push to talk on this app, but it's all good. Next time you come on, we can explain how to do it differently. So two things. You were briefly touching on Raphael, if you have anything you want to ask or interject, feel free. The kind of flower of life and the Metatron's cube. We had talked about that on your show before. This gets kind of into Nassim Harriman territory a little. And it's, do you just look at that as describing the kind of negative and positive polarization aspect of the Tao?
Yeah. Yeah, I have a little bit, negative and positive, as in like energy, like
masculine, feminine, or whatever.
Yeah. It's the yin and yang. The only reason, I bring that, because this whole thing of, you've got to remember the words you use. You're accepting certain permission slips for them. So this is why I'll always say, well, negative and positive, as in the masculine and feminine. But yes, they are the two, because this reality has this yin and yang coming together that creates Tai Chi. Yes, you have and Nissan Herman. The biggest thing with Nissan Herman for me was I grew up with all this dragon dog shaman stuff about, they were talking about that all these different beings that came to us, a lot of them talked about they came through our Stargate, and the Stargate was either the sun or the center of our Earth. But there is basically, and that there is a network of tunnels, or a network of energy tunnels that they go from each star, each planet, that everything can connect through. I think Corey Good has also mentioned this as well. And it was interesting with Nissan Herman totally believed. He said from the evidence he was seeing that inside the center of the sun was a black hole, and each star exactly the same. That the evidence that that the scientific evidence was showing that there is the likelihood that there is a black hole in every single star. I was hearing this when I was 14, 15 years old from my teachers, who were Dragon Dog Shaman and Barefoot, well, Taoists in general, but they would say that the Dragon Dog Shaman talked about that every star had a black hole, but also that we were full of black holes inside our atoms. In every single atom there is a black hole at the center, and the black hole is a portal. It's a portal to anywhere in the universe, and and back, what they would call back to the Tao, back to source, back to collective consciousness. So that anywhere so this idea of linear travel, we travel from here to there, yes, you can do that, but you can also at the same time focus on that energy and pop from one place to the other. That all times, all locations exist at everywhere, and at the same time, and at the same point, that everything's the Taoist concept, I think Bashar talked about this as well, is that everything happens all at once. There is no linear, this idea of linear travel or linear time is an illusion, and this whole thing of so the flower of life under the dragon dog's foot is also the Merkabah. Inside that is a Merkabah, the male yin and yang, the plus and negative exists all at the same time, if that makes sense.
It does. Raphael, did you have anything you want to kind of talk about before I ask my other question?
For now, go ahead.
No, so that's fascinating. I guess it's for the sake of experience that we experience time and stuff. Do you feel that there's any risk to untethering from, this is a weird way to put it, if we're full of black holes, are you worried that you can lose your place in time space? Or I guess the presupposition is it's all happening now, you can't get lost, you're already there.
Yeah, you can just realize that you're already everywhere. That's the only issue you can run into, I guess.
Well, then I kind of think, could you get splintered into another reality that you forget this one? This seems like a pretty decent one, I guess. I like being here, that's why we're here.
We got splintered into this reality and forgot about all the other ones, so that would be my answer.
It's a two-way door.
Yeah, very much. I agree with Raphael. Very much that. I think the interesting. Well, I think this is where the Mandela effect kicks in, and or deja vu is the fact is again. The Tao for me, a lot of the stuff I talk about. A lot of if you look at Taoism in the West, very much, you'll see you half the stuff I'm talking about you won't see. It's still in China. It's kept very quiet. They talk it because they don't want to. A lot of this information is still restricted, and especially, like I say, through communism and elsewhere. But I think very much there's this whole thing of we still think in a linear way. If I do this, it's going to fracture the universe. Well, what you go into quantum physics and they talk about multiverse theory, and the Taoists talked about is that there's all these different realities. There is all these. There's a reality where we're having this conversation. There's a reality where all three of us never met, or all three of us already know each other, and everything else. That every possible conceivable reality exists, and if you go from that viewpoint, then there is no good or bad, because if everything exists, then there can't be any fracturing. All there can be, and I know Bashar talks about this, is that in truth your consciousness slips through different realities all the time. That if you start perceiving a certain thing, I know I've done it, where I've woken up, or spoken to a friend, and they're saying, about when we went to a fun fair last week, and I'm going, I didn't go to a fun fair last week with you. Yes, you did. We did this, and this, and then the next day I say, where did that come from, the fun fair thing? And then they'll go, what fun fair? What are you talking about? So I've experienced those
Slippage,
where
or Mandela
alternative
effect.
and I think it's this thing of, and this is where I very much resonated with the Bashar idea, is that we slip in and out of different realities all the time, and it's this whole thing of, it's where your consciousness is at that point. It's where what you're perceiving and how you perceive it. And so when people talk about the end of days scenarios, or end of the world scenarios, and the Yuku fire, and is there going to be a solar flash, and will it wipe everything out? And it's like, well, what do you want? What reality do you want to choose? What do you want to focus on? I think part of this ascension, ascending, is realizing how much control you actually have, and how much you can actually focus on these realities, how you can tune the universal radio, into a different frequency, and pick an alternative reality. How you stay there, that's where I'm having trouble on, because like I say, I've been in realities where certain things didn't happen, or did happen, and then the next day it can flip back.
Can be rather
but
confusing,
it's
I'm
all
sure.
about just yes, especially like as I
Did
said,
I pay
especially
the bills or not in this reality? No, I'm kidding.
Well, yeah. Well, that's a whole different thing. But yes, I mean, for now, at the moment, for me, they're sort of big little things. Like I say, like one day, a whole group of people are saying we all went to the fair, and the next day it didn't. Nothing. Not yet, anyway. Have I done like a Back to the Future Part 3 episode where everything's changed, but I think it's this thing of, I do think things are merging. I think it's all about energy. The more energy, because this goes, for me, that's what I was just talking about, is the same as the whole fairies. And can you see fairies? Can you see dinosaurs? Or even can you see a unicorn? And I think it's where is your energy at? What level is your energy at? And where are you on the planet? Because I know there are places on the planet it's far easier to see these things than others, but because the veil is thinner, or there's more energy, however you want to put it. But I definitely know that there's, and again, it's this thing of the people you surround yourself also affect what happens as well. If you have people who very much don't believe in, have a very one set way of thinking about things, then definitely things don't happen. If you're with people, surrounded by people who are very open-minded and or very much want to focus on a certain thing, then that will very much happen. Because I know I met the monks from Tibet that created the golem. I don't know if you ever heard of that story, but
I
there
know what
was
a golem is, but go on with that. I haven't heard the story.
Right, so there was a group. This was back in, I think it was late '60s, that these group of Tibetan monks wanted to show. You know, they talked about the ancient stories and the golems in ancient Tibet, and these, I think there's about 12 of them that spent about a week doing their meditation, doing their stretching, doing their qigong. So in the Eastern philosophy, stretching, qigong, and meditation is how you raise your vibration. Doing all three, because you stretch the mind, you stretch the body, and you stretch the spirit. And they practiced that for over a week, and then this golem appeared and it existed for about 2 weeks, or it was there for 2 weeks, then it disappeared again. And you know, they were very adamant that, you know, it definitely existed, and they said it was through their collective consciousness they created it, or at least I think they brought it into this reality rather than created. They just brought it into this reality. And I think it's this very much this thing of, is that I know the FBI have done case studies with 2,000 back in the 90s. They did 2,000 people in Washington meditating on peace and love, and they dropped the crime rate by 25%. They then did a test with 7,000 people worldwide, and they dropped the crime and acts of terror on globally by 80% over a week.
And even recently, there was
was
an eclipse or something, and the Schumann resonance was affected by a mass meditation. So we know that it affects these things.
Yeah, and the Schumann resonance was affected again. There was that one, but I think it was last week, or there was another mass meditation, not in an eclipse, just a couple of weeks ago, and it was affected again. Is that we are, you know, the reality can be changed in two ways. This is how I was taught. Reality can be changed in two ways. If you it can either be changed personally by massive amounts of energy. That energy needs to be generated inside you through meditation, through qigong, and through yoga or stretching, or it can be collected. It can be generated by mass. So you either do it with a mass amount of people, all focusing on it together, and you can create through that way, or through individuals with mass amount of power. Either way, it takes a lot of energy, but it's whether you do it through mass or do it through individuals. And that's, I think, is the biggest, and that is because, or things are getting more easier for this to happen, because universally the clock is moving around to the age of Aquarius. I think that was the whole point of the Mayan prophecy. Was never, you know, when people talk about, the Mayans said it was the end of the world, then that doesn't make no sense at all. Because, well, yeah, because there was another 9 calendars after that one. How can it be the end of what? How can it be the end of the world if there's they already created another 9 stone tablets? So,
I've seen a great like Far Side or something where they're like, "Hey, let's freak people out and say it ends here." Like, you know, it's like, I don't know how it all works. We might be running out of time, so I wanted to ask one more question. And I'm not needing to cut you off. I want to get you back on here. You're a very interesting character in this dream theater called life, and I've always appreciated your energy. You're really fun. But I was looking at your website and it says the 5 spirit horses. What is that?
Right. So within Taoist culture, the 5 spirits, or so in China it's called the 5 spirit horses, and the 3 riders, and it's a Chinese love metaphors, and basically your consciousness, you have 5 wild horses, 5 spirit horses, and those 5 spirit horses are your meridians, the energy channels in the body, your chakras. So the meridians are closest to your physical health and well-being. The chakras, which are closest to your emotional health and well-being. The aura, which is closest to your spiritual health and well-being. The the Merkabah, which is the divine masculine energy, or the Metatron's cube, the flower life, which is also the Torah, which is the divine feminine energy, and then the Dantians. Now the Dantien means cinnabar field or power cell, and they're 3 power cells. One stores chi. So the short chi sound is physical vitality. Jing is emotional vitality, also known as prana in Sanskrit, and Shen is spiritual vitality. So the 3 riders are these 3 dantians, and they fuel or govern all these energy systems, and all these energy systems are the energy systems of your consciousness. So just like in the physical body, you have bones and veins and blood vessels and muscles and tendons. In our energy conscious, according to the ancient knowledge, which I say Taoism, but the ancient knowledge is supposed to come from these other races. They talk about the meridians, the chakras, the aura, the Merkabah, the Torah field, and the Dantians. And originally, they were all known as part of the same system. And then through our time, in the last 10,000 years of our time, yoga kept with the chakras. The Chinese medical system kept with the meridians and the dantians. The aura came more Western, and they talk about aura in the light. The Merkabah, where the Merkabah went into Judaism, went into Hinduism, went into Christianity a little bit at the Star of David, and flipped around a bit. Tibet as well with the Merkabah, and then the flower life, well, that slipped around places, but the original concept where all of these systems are part of your consciousness, are your, almost like if your consciousness had a body, which it doesn't, but if your consciousness had a body, that body would consist of meridians, chakras, auras, Merkabah, Torah field, and dantians.
So the anatomy of the consciousness, in a sense.
Yes, but what you have to understand is, as I'm hitting the air firmly, is what you have to understand is that's not just for humans, that's for everything. Everything has meridians, chakras, auras, Merkabah, a Torah field. The earth has meridians. They are called ley lines or dragon lines in China. The chakras, the different vortexes or energy points. The Merkabah, science has actually put a Merkabah in a planet, on a sphere, in our whole solar system, and at the points of the Merkabah you will find energy vortexes. In
We've
actual
actually
fact,
discussed that with the guy from the Welcome to the Golden Page. He was getting into that, the polygonal nature of the insides of the spheres.
Yeah, and so yeah, and you'll find that in the sun. You put a Merkabah, and you work, go by the north and the south of any sphere, and you'll find the points. The Bermuda Triangle is one of those points, but it's not the only one. We only focus on the Bermuda Triangle, but there are other points. You put it on Saturn or Pluto, and you'll see energy swirls. When you go by the north and south, which is the yin and the yang, when you go by the north and the south, you'll find those points. And the flower life is a flower life. So the 64 circles are meant to turn in on themselves. It's meant to be moving. We did things as stationary because we didn't have the ability back then to draw things that could move. Now with computers we do, but the 64 circles of the flower life is meant to be a sphere. That's why the dragon dogs hold a ball, and it's meant to turn in on itself because it is the Torah field. It's a donut shaped energy. And again, that happens on the Earth. You see that on the atmosphere. You'll see that on the sun. Everything has a toric field. The galaxy, you see this toridic nature, but it's just another. It's the feminine to the masculine. It's the yin to the yang.
Well, damn, that's hot, as Paris Hilton would say. Raphael, did you have any kind of comments or questions before we wrap it up?
Well, I think that's already a perfect closing comment. There's much more to share and explore and discuss. However, I just say we wind it down, and I'm already looking forward to the next time.
I'm pretty sure Sifu means teacher, right?
Yes. Sifu means in the West we made it sound like teacher or master, but actually it means parent, guide, or muse. It's somebody who doesn't tell you how it's going to be, but points you in the direction. So
almost like the midwife of the Arcturus card. You're midwifing creativity and midwifing information.
Yeah, and I do it because I'm the balancer between chaos and calmness, Boggie. I do it in a fun way. I'm slightly childlike. I like being silly. I like having fun, and so I can give a load of information, and then I'll do something silly, or I'll wear a silly hat, or because the whole idea is that yes, this is all important, but don't take yourself or anything else too seriously.
The paradox of the Tai Chi of all reality, it seems. Well, I want to thank you for coming on, Sifu Boggie. You're a very cool cat in my book, and it's always a pleasure to cross paths. We'll get you on here as soon as possible again. I guess if you have a website, I think it's sifuboggie.com, correct?
Yes, www.sifuboggie.com. That's the main one for now. I actually, and I teach a lot of what I do. I teach, so I do Qigong online all over the world, and we actually have a spiritual network called the Way of Conscious Mindfulness, the Tribe TV, where where myself and some other hosts, we talk about a lot of what we talk about here, which you can't necessarily talk about publicly, or at least on Facebook or YouTube, without somebody trying to want to ban you. So we talk about, raising consciousness and awareness. So anybody interested in that, look up on www.sifuboggie.com, or you can also find me on YouTube under the same name, Sifu Boggie, or Instagram, or even TikTok. Because you've got to be everywhere.
Snap.
Or at least I am.
Yeah, you have a TikTok. I don't even have a fucking TikTok. Good job. So anyway, it's been a pleasure. I mean, I guess this makes me more aware of the fact how little I really do know. So it's always fun to kind of get splashed with the curriculum of life in a new way, and it's very inspiring. Makes me definitely want to more investigate Taoism as a whole. But thanks for coming on again, and I guess if I have to say anything, it's just like, let's get further up and further in this bitch, y'all. Like, there's a lot of information out there. It's a game, but let's have fun.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, that's how you've got to say it. There's always more to learn, and hey, I don't know everything. There's always more to learn, and I've enjoyed this immensely, guys. And I'm happy to come back whenever you want. So let us know, and see you all in the future. Take care. Love, Chin Shen.
Awesome. Thank you, Sifu. Thank you, Jim. I was about to say, at last, someone who knows what's up. Of course, then being humble at the very same time, and all of these understandings, I think as an introduction and brief outline, it was amazing. Everybody go check out the website. Just to anyone understanding the spelling, it's sifuboggie.com. That's sifuboggie.com. Yeah, catch y'all on the other side. See you in the now, and as always, enjoy yourselves. Thanks so much.
Radio Okitalk, Radio Okitalk, Radio Okitalk.